Within a minute of Team Urahara winning against Askin Naklava, Urahara was on his knees coughing up blood. He apologizes to Ichigo and Rukia before collapsing face first as his Bankai dissolves around him. If Neliel hadn't been stationed on a tower outside of Askin's Gift Ball Deluxe with rescue instructions, then the smartest man within Bleach would have died. Episode 42 of the 1000 Year Blood War arc anime finally animated Urahara's Bankai. It has the ability to repair, reinforce, as it also opens doors, but it never lands a killing blow against Askin. Kubo's definitely given Urahara a final Zanpakuto release that's overpowered in every aspect, and in this video we'll be explaining why his Bankai wasn't enough to deliver the killing blow against Askin. Unlike Urahara, do you know which Bleach character would never find themselves left behind in a massive poisonous dome? These are the individuals that are subscribed to the channel. Only 20% of the people who watch these videos are subscribed, so if you enjoy this content and want to see more, then hit the bell icon and the subscribe button for even more Bleach content just like this. Episode 42 of the 1000 Year Blood War arc anime, titled Son of Darkness, adapts chapters 664 through to 666. This is manga content featuring the Bankai of Urahara that was revealed over 10 years ago in 2016. His Bankai is titled Kannonbiraki Benihime Aratame, which translates to modification of the Crimson Princess. Dissection at the doors of Avalokiteshvara. This is a revered bodhisattva in Buddhism, and it personifies the boundless compassion of all Buddhas. The name of the deity that Urahara's Bankai is named after also translates to the Lord who gazes down at the world. You see this in the physical puppet that appears when Urahara activates his Bankai and how it looks down, towering over Urahara. Kannonbiraki is the Japanese term for a pair of doors that swing open outwards from the center, the way the doors of a shrine cabinet part to reveal the Buddhist statue housed inside. Japanese chefs use the same word for the technique of cutting meat open flat, like opening double doors. When he activates his Bankai, Urahara reveals a giant kneeling woman manifesting behind him with black hair tied into those long exaggerated loops, draped in a red robe that's barely doing its job, with visible joints in her mannequin arms. She appears to take on the form of a life-sized mannequin doll. In Club Outside Question and Answer from 2024, we quietly learn why she appears like this. Kubo was asked how Shikai and Bankai differ, and his answer was that Shikai is a state where the wielder's power is reflected in the blade, whereas Bankai is a state where the blade's self-awareness has developed enough to fully manifest. So this towering puppet woman is Benihime herself, awakened and physically present, performing surgery on her own wielder with her bare hands. In another 2024 Club Outside Question and Answer, Kubo confirmed that he's personally drawn a substantial amount of reference material for the anime staff to look at for each of the Bankais that are in the 1000 Year Blood War arc anime, and it definitely does show, as Pero Films depicted Urahara's Bankai like a horror film. A shroud forms over Urahara. Benihime crawls out of the alley behind him in first-person shots with this dry rattling sound, and then the shroud shreds into individual fibers as she settles over her master. Kubo has also said that he wanted this manifestation to feel unsettling, and the anime truly delivered on this brief. When Urahara was facing off against Askin and everything went quiet, and we hear Urahara with this calm but assertive tone say Bankai, it was goosebump inducing. Askin is genuinely shocked because Urahara's Bankai was not in the Daten, the intelligence documents that Yuba compiled on every threat within the Soul Society. Kubo confirmed in a 2023 Club Outside Question and Answer that Shinigami have an actual obligation to report their Zanpakuto abilities and whether if they've achieved Bankai. He definitely would have had to show off his Bankai for his captain's proficiency exam, but Urahara does say that he hasn't revealed this Bankai within present company. And this is why he was considered as one of the 5 special war powers by Yuhobag. This is a man who has a contingency for absolutely every situation. He was also the first Shinigami in recorded history to achieve Bankai within a span of 3 days using the Tenshintai. This is his very own invention that forcibly drags a Zanpakuto spirit into the physical world. In chapter 224, Chad begs Urahara to train him, but instead of himself training Chad, he gets Renji to do the work for him, as he admits that his Bankai isn't suited to training others or helping them. So yeah, over 400 chapters ago, Urahara was already speaking about the fact that he had a Bankai, and we waited patiently for him to reveal it right at the end of the run of the manga. When Benihime appears, she places her hands over Urahara's face and rebuilds the eyes that Askin just destroyed with the gift ring. So the first use involves restoration. Urahara then restructures his own left hand and arm, stripping the poison out of the flesh so he can grip his sword at full strength. This is what lets him smash Askin through a row of buildings. So the second use is enhancement. Then in an anime expanded scene, he rides his own stitch lines through the air, grinding between rooftops and weaving through the barrage of gift balls. The third use is mobility. Then as the concentration of Askin's poison climbs, his right foot begins to die, so he restructures it mid-sprint. The fourth use, it demonstrates he's able to maintain his physical ability with his Bankai. He also carves apart the incoming gift balls with stitches, which highlight that he can use his Bankai for defense. He also opens a route through the gift ball for a third party to arrive, so it helps him with battle logistics. And then there's a seventh and final use of the Bankai which we see demonstrated, and it's right at the beginning of their fight where Kannonbiraki Benihime Aratame touches Askin with hostile intent. It splits his left arm open like a patient on a operating table. The attack only lasts for seconds as Askin correctly realizes that his Bankai is ranged. Urahara's Bankai went up against Askin's Shrift, the death dealing. This allows Askin to calculate the absolute lethal dose of any substance that he's taken into his body, and he's then able to freely raise or lower that value in other people. Kubo's been weirdly generous with details about Askin on Club Outside over the years. In 2023, he was asked whether if Gin's Kamishini no Yari poison would kill Askin. Kubo answered that it would, but only if Askin had never come into contact with Gin's Reiatsu beforehand. Prior exposure is the central mechanism of Askin's power. He was also asked whether if "it's fatal" was Askin's catchphrase before he ever received his Shrift, and Kubo confirmed that it was and then signed off the answer with "it's fatal, isn't it?" And strangely, Kubo also revealed to us what was in the sandwich that Askin was eating while he was watching the Ginpachi fight. The sandwich had ham, cucumber, and mustard in it. Honestly, no other sternwriter has gotten this much love from Kubo. It's evident that the author clearly loves this character, and it shows in how he wrote his fight against Urahara. The basic version of Askin's power had already failed against him. Askin flat out complains that Urahara is barely affected by lethal dosage manipulation. The man is simply too strong for it, so Askin has no choice but to escalate. This is after Urahara forces Yoruichi to activate her ultimate form Shunko Raiju Senkei Shunryu Kokobyo Senki. In this form, her spiritual pressure can mutate 48 times per second based on her mood, and Urahara compares it to influenza slipping past your immune system through tiny antigenic shifts, thus making it difficult for Askin to acquire immunity to Yoruichi's ever-changing spiritual pressure. Askin responds by activating his Volstandig Hashiine called God's Poison Taster. This allows him to adapt to alterations in a poison automatically, as he works out that experiencing all 48 variations per second just means that he becomes immune to all 48 if he survives a single second. When Askin turns to Urahara, he asks him almost warmly whether if he isn't the slightest bit curious about what Yuaba would create once the three realms are destroyed. Urahara responds by swatting him away with a sword swing. He explains that even someone like Mayuri would refuse this kind of curiosity, because a scientist believes the things no one has ever seen should be built with your own hands. Askin then utilizes his ability Gift Ring, and the anime adapts this perfectly. The Gift Ring expands, vanishes, and it materializes within Urahara's eyes, as it kills them one after another with blood hitting the floor. Now this is what forces him to activate his Bankai. His first application of it splits Askin's arm open, but the sternwriter doesn't even notice as Urahara has to point it out to him. Urahara even says most people panic and try to cut their arm off, but Askin retreats, and the moment that the coast is clear, the gash sews itself back shut, as instantaneously he learns one of the biggest secrets of Urahara's Bankai for free. He cleverly deduces the range restriction within seconds and simply never fights inside that radius on Urahara's terms again. From there, his game plan doesn't involve touching Urahara at all. The gift ball was already up and he had sealed the exits the moment Hashiine neutralized their Reiatsu tricks. He explains that escape from the gift ball is completely the impossible as he cranks the concentration of the gift ball deluxe and lets the environment do the work for him. This now brings us to the way in which Askin was defeated. Grimmjow comes through the wall. Urahara had healed him on the way to this fight, formed an agreement with him, and this is the part that's really interesting. He also briefed Neliel on 5 possible scenarios before the battle even began, so she'd know when to move. When Askin protests that his gift ball was inescapable, Urahara's correction is surgical in its own right, as he states Askin said escape was impossible, he never said entry was. So Urahara ran one long stitch across several buildings, straight through the shell from the outside, and let the Resurrection released Grimmjow walk into the door that he had just created. Why didn't Askin see him coming? This is where the fight's cleverest mechanics are hidden. Arrancar created by Aizen undergo a complete Reiatsu shift when they activate Resurrection. Their signature stops reading as Arrancar and becomes fully hollow. Askin, standing in a fortress tuned to every energy signature he's catalogued, didn't register the predator behind him, because Grimmjow's Resurrection essentially made him a different species. Urahara noticed this property and thought that it might be useful later, so he pre-healed Grimmjow, the one individual on the battlefield whose transformation doubles as a camouflage. He could have also done this with Neliel, but he had her on standby anyway, preparing for the 5 different scenarios that he spoke to her about. With Askin's heart ripped out in the fist of Grimmjow, he marvels at Urahara seeing so far ahead. Urahara shrugs it off with his doctrine that he prepares 1,000 precautions for every possibility, so that even one can succeed. Askin refers to this as insane, but he isn't wrong. The finishing move was delivered by Grimmjow's fist. The stealth mechanic was a property Aizen engineered into his Arrancar well before this battle against Askin. The extraction plan involved Neliel. Urahara's Bankai basically contributed a doorway for Grimmjow to come in. The most anticipated Bankai within Bleach, it was hyped since the Arrancar arc, and the crowning achievement of its first reveal is literally creating a doorway. So Askin dies, but not before revealing that he's been subconsciously restraining the gift ball deluxe out of fear that it would kill him too. His death removes this safety as the dome surges. Grimmjow drops mid-taunt, and Askin's actual final words are a compliment, stating he sure Urahara of all people will figure a way out. Urahara collapses with Benihime kneeling beside him as he coughs blood, wondering if this is the end. He apologizes to Ichigo and Rukia for leaving everything to them. Neliel is watching from outside of the gift ball deluxe as she counts 4 distinct Reiatsu signatures within the dome, calculating that she'll need 2 round trips, as she notices the small entrance into the gift ball. Now it takes the Can't Feel Unwell light novels to confirm that all of those individuals within Askin's gift ball deluxe did in fact survive. In the prologue of the light novels, we learn she pulls all 4 of them out: Urahara, Grimmjow, Yoruichi, and her brother Yushiro. The novels quietly show us the aftermath once recovered. Urahara personally constructs the reinforced bindings that hold Aizen in Muken, with Mayuri fresh off life support, grumbling about whether if anyone can really count on Urahara's methods. 6 months on, he's fit enough to give Hisagi an interview about the war, and by the events of the 3rd volume, he's casually throwing around Hado 91 and an incantationless Hado 99 against the Fullbringer Ore Michibane. After Hisagi leaves Urahara's shop, having earnestly told Urahara that he considers him a hero, Yoruichi asks why he'd let a journalist like Hisagi dig that deep into his past. Urahara has a pretty bleak response. Hisagi assumes he created the Hogyoku to free the Soul King, but Urahara tells her that that's entirely wrong. In truth, it's the opposite. All he wanted was to make something new, to open a door. The Soul King was the excuse that he used to pick the lock, and fundamentally, in his own words, he's no different from Kurotsuchi, sacrificing whoever it takes to feed his research cravings. Think back to the line that he threw at Askin about scientists building the unseen with their own hands. He wasn't describing Mayuri, he was in fact confessing something about himself. Urahara states that Hiyori was the one who saw through him, and that when the day comes that he truly becomes someone worth calling a villain, he wants Hisagi or Ichigo or Rukia to be the ones to judge him, not Yoruichi. She'd take his side no matter what, and he needs his executioner to be impartial. Yoruichi's response is that she wouldn't stop at kicking him. She'd literally snap his neck herself. Kannon Bodhisattva is the Japanese name for Avalokiteshvara. We spoke about this at the beginning of the video. This is the Bodhisattva of compassion, the being who stands at the threshold of enlightenment and refuses to walk through, choosing instead to stay behind and relieve the suffering of everyone else. Urahara held the Hokyoku, an object that grants the desires of one's heart, and not once did he think to create a complete Hokyoku and use it for himself. Fans have even pointed out that Kannon traditionally presides over the West, which could symbolize Urahara's exile to the world of the living. Now this is, after all, a fan interpretation, but a writer as deliberate as Kubo, who names Urahara's Bankai after the deity who postpones their own salvation, I don't think this was an accident. Urahara is easily the most reliable character within Bleach. He's the one that everyone turns to when they're in a pinch, and he seems to always have an answer eventually to every problem. So you can see how he's building the road for others to walk towards victory, but no matter how hard he tries, he can never walk down that path himself. In a way, this is why he created the road for Grimmjow to appear and claim the victory against Askin. Can't Fear Unworld explains it clearly. Urahara handed 3 other people the authority to condemn him. In some way deep down he knows that he is beyond salvation. This is why he fears that he may truly become someone worth calling a villain. Beyond all of this deeper meaning and symbolism, there's no doubt that Kannonbiraki Benihime is still one of the most versatile Bankai within the series. And it truly was a pleasure seeing it animated within episode 42 just this last weekend. We have now reached the point of the video where I want to hand over the discussion to all of you. What are your thoughts about Urahara's Bankai and the way that it was adapted within the latest episode of Bleach? Did you like the horror aesthetic that the anime staff and Kubo incorporated into the anime version? If there's anything that I've forgotten to mention about Urahara's Bankai, then let me know by continuing the discussion in the comments. And lastly, thanks for making it to the end of this one, and I look forward to seeing you in my next Bleach video.
A massive thank you goes out to all of my amazing Patreon supporters for helping to make this video possible. If you also want to support the channel and see your name in the end of my videos, then check out my Patreon, which has loads of perks like early video access and so much more. Thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.